Good morning. My name is Ron Lennox, and I'm the Midday Rotary Club's Services Vice President, and I welcome everyone to today's program. Before we get started, Diego is going to mute all of our online audience so that we don't have any interruptions to our speaker today. And if you're online and you have a question for our speaker, please type it into the chat window and we will read your questions at the end of the presentation. Today, the Midday Rotary Club welcomes Erika Montes Ruiz, an official representative of the San Miguel U.S. Consular Agency. She serves the U.S. expat community by protecting of citizens with temporary or permanent residency in Mexico, issues passports and visas, and other diplomatic functions. She began working at the agency in July of 2019. Previously, she worked at the embassy in the consular section, and at the embassy, she worked on passport and special citizen services subunits. Originally, she's from Chiapas, Mexico, and became a naturalized U.S. citizen in July of 2012. She lived in the Pacific Northwest of the United States for 10 years. Today, she's going to give us updated information on routine and emergency services at the consular agency, passport renewals by mail at the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City, and COVID travel restrictions to the United States. Erika, we welcome you to today's meeting and look forward to hearing about your agency.
Hello, good morning, everybody. And thank you for having me. I'm honored to speak to you again. The first thing I would like to speak about is our routine services here at the Consular Agency. For those of you who don't know, we're located at the Plaza Luciérnaga, which is where Liverpool is at, and we're currently experiencing a very high demand with passport appointments, and the passports or the processing time for passports right now is taking up to 8 weeks. And we're currently scheduling appointments at the end of February and beginning of March. So if you're here in San Miguel and you are thinking about renewing your passport, just keep that in mind, that if you request an appointment now, your appointment will be scheduled sometime in late February to beginning of March, and then it'll be about 8 months after that until you have your passport. So we're speaking about May, June. So that is something to keep in mind, because I feel like if you have a passport right now that is valid for at least a year, I would suggest to you to renew that passport sometime, within the 6 months before it expires. The other option that you would have if you have an adult passport, which is the passport that's valid for 10 years, if you have that, you can also explore the option of having the passport renewed at the embassy in Mexico City by mail. I will copy and paste the link to that information that's on the embassy website. But it's a simple process. You just have to send in your application and then purchase 2 waybills with DHL. The instructions are also available on the website for the DHL shipping waybill instructions. And then the processing time for that is also up to 8 weeks. But you can just mail it in and then we'll just wait for the 8 weeks to receive your passport. So that's another thing to consider, if you're thinking about getting your passport renewed soon. The other routine services that we offer here at the agency is a notarial service. So we do offer those services for the documents that will be used in the U.S. Examples of the documents that we do all the time are the closing documents for the sale of properties. And, we also like banks documents that also require notary signatures, those type of services, or those documents, you can have them notarized here, and the cost for that is $50 per notary seal. Let's see. So that would be in relation to our routine services, and we do have we're very busy. We have appointments scheduled since 9 in the morning all the way until about 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And we are not taking walk-ins unless it is an extreme emergency, so like a life and death situation. We have had a few people who've come to our office and they just have a question. So because we are very busy right now, unfortunately, that's not something that we'll be able to assist if you just have, a general question. So we suggest everyone who wants to get in contact with me or with our office to send us an email first. If you really want to schedule an appointment and come talk to me about a situation that you're currently dealing with, I will be more than happy to schedule you for an appointment as soon as we can. But we do need to schedule an appointment. And if it's an urgent situation, I can get, I can get that appointment scheduled within 2 to 3 days, depending, if it's a weekend or holiday or whatnot. But I will make the best effort to talk to you about anything that I can do to help. I'm happy to talk to you, but I just ask that you send us an email first so that we can schedule you in for an appointment, because our instructions right now, and especially, we're still in a pandemic, is everyone who comes in does need to have an appointment. So, that would be my message to you. I'm here to assist U.S. citizens, and I'm very happy to do that. But I also ask for you to send that email first. And also we can schedule a phone call if that's something that you want to talk about over the phone. But walk-ins right now are not, we're not accepting those. The other part of the responsibilities that we have here is what's called the special citizen services. And that's where a large gray area of the work we do comes in. For example, we assist people who have been detained either by the local authorities in relation to a crime or even just an immigration. You were detained by immigration. We do assist those people. Also, any death of a U.S. citizen. If you've been a victim of crime, that is something that we can assist you with. And the type of assistance that we can offer, it depends on the circumstances of your case. So like, for example, someone who has some type of process with immigration, that's not something that we would assist with. That's, if there's anything that we can help, we would do that. For example, sometimes immigration authorities ask for an affidavit in regards to any change of name, especially people who change their name to a married name. That is something, that we can assist you with. But if you are detained, by immigration and you are in a detention facility, then that would be a different type of assistance. That would be something that we'll be more involved in. I also would like to clarify that we do not do U.S. visas, so we don't, or tourist visas. That's not something that we do here. This consular agency here is focused on American citizen services, so visas is not something that falls under that category. So for tourist visas or U.S. visas, yeah, something that you would need to request either at the embassy in Mexico City or one of the consulate generals. The closest in the area would also be Guadalajara. So that's, again, that's a process that we would not be able to offer here. Now, for the death of U.S. citizens, that I would like to share with you that I would say in the last year or so, we have been getting notifications of death of U.S. citizens, of people who maybe die alone in their house, the local authorities have to go in and do all the processing. But I would like to encourage you or anyone that to pass along this message, the importance of making arrangements for that event. And the reason why is because a lot of the times for this type of people, sometimes they're not in contact with their family, or or maybe they don't have close family members, but they have close friends, and you can make those arrangements to allow a friend or just someone that or even a will where you can name someone to make those arrangements for you. Because if you don't do that and there's no one who can claim, or no family member who can claim your remains, then the remains would go to a common grave. And that is something that we have been seeing very frequently, and it's just a sad experience, especially when there are other people in the community who had some type of relationship with that person who passed away. Is you want to be able to have a funeral and maybe get the remains cremated and taken back to the US. I don't know, but it is very important to have those arrangements made, because also that just makes the process easier for whoever, it can be even your partner. And here in Mexico, if you're not married, then they're not, that person is not considered an immediate family member. So that is another important thing to consider, is to make sure that you, or it's highly recommended that you do make those arrangements, to facilitate, to make that situation easier for your loved ones. Okay, so the other topic that I would like to cover is the COVID requirements for or restrictions to travel to the US. So as of November 8th, as many of you know, you do have to get or be fully vaccinated in order to travel to the US, either by land or by air. So if you're traveling by air, you do have to have your proof of vaccination. And also the vaccines that are approved or they're allowed are the ones that are approved by the WHO. So that's something also to pay attention to. Now, if you are a US citizen and you are not vaccinated, you can still travel to the US by air. You just have to get your COVID test 24 hours before your travel. And then if you are vaccinated, you still have to get a COVID test. It just the results have to be no more than 72 hours before your flight. So that requirement about the COVID test is still in place. It hasn't gone away. What was added, it was the vaccination requirement. But again, we have been getting questions from US citizens, especially young US citizens who have not been able to get vaccinated, or maybe people who were just not able to get vaccinated for other reasons, and or by personal choice. But that does not mean you can't travel. It just means that you have to get COVID tested 24 hours before your flight. If you do travel by land, you do have to have your proof of vaccination, but it may not be, the CBP officer may not ask to see it, but you do have to have it. And then again, if you are a US citizen and you're traveling by land, then that's not something that you would need to be concerned about. But if you are vaccinated, I would suggest that you just have that with you at all times. Okay, I think there were some questions. Okay, give me just a minute to read this question.
She's reading them off the chat. Yeah.
Erika, I can assist in reading questions that folks might post because my colleague is away from the computer. I used to do this job before, so I'll just take this moment to remind everyone that you can enter your questions in the chat, and I'll be reading them off to Erika.
Okay.
There's nothing there right now that you need to answer.
Can you unmute? Do we have any questions here in the room?
Yes, right here.
Oh, Gary?
Clarification. Hi, Erika.
Hello.
Again, if we travel by land and we go through like Laredo, do we still have to have the COVID test, or do we just need proof of vaccination? I wasn't clear.
No, if you travel by land, you just have to have proof of vaccination.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in the room?
Yeah, but I don't have to.
That was okay, that same question. Nori? Okay.
I need a clarification on traveling by air. How many days ahead do you have to have the test?
If you're traveling by land, you do not need a test.
Talking by air.
Air.
Oh, by air. I'm sorry. I didn't quite hear you. If you are fully vaccinated, your results have to be no longer than 72 hours before your flight. So 3 days. You just have to be
Sure.
careful about the 72 hours because 3 days, it may be over the 72 hours depending on the time of your flight. So it just, 3 days before you're actually traveling.
Thank you.
Right now,
What
there
else?
are two questions online. One of them is, what is Erika's email address?
Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Okay, wonderful.
And I'm gonna do my work email and then also the Consular Agency email, which is, for general inquiries.
Perfect. And then there's a question about whether the PCR test or antigen tests are necessary.
And any of the two. So it can be either the PCR or antigen.
Perfect.
I just typed in the email for us.
Excellent. We have a question about notarization of documents for non-emergency documents. What is the approximate waiting time for an appointment?
Our notary appointments are actually very, we don't have much of a wait time. We can schedule probably by the following week. So if we get a request today, we can schedule it by the following week. If it's an urgent matter, you are traveling or you have a closing date, let us know. Just make sure that you state that in your email, and then we will accommodate an appointment for you to come in either that same day or the following day, unless, it's a holiday or a weekend.
Can you hear me? First of all. We've been hearing stories about the Mexican government cracking down on people here either without visas or visas that have expired, or that you just don't happen to have them in your pocket. Could you tell us what's going on with that and what the rules are now?
Sure. Yes, of course. So the reason, or one of the reasons why immigration authorities or local authorities are being a little more strict on that matter is because of the increase of of immigrants who are coming from Central and South America. So that means that, and they're not gonna make exceptions. So basically, if you're Mexican, you're supposed to have an ID with you, your voter's ID. And then if you're not a Mexican citizen, you do need to have proof of your status here. So if you're here as a tourist, you need to have that with you. And if you're a permanent resident or a temporary resident, you also need to have proof of that with you. So those are the rules, and actually those have always been the rules. It's just that it's being a little bit more enforced right now because of that increase of immigrants coming from Central and South America. My recommendation to you would be to always have those documents with you, or to prove your immigration status in Mexico, or to make sure that you have them, handy. I recently actually had a meeting with immigration authorities, and that was also their advice, that you're supposed to have that with you at all times. But if you don't have it, they're gonna be flexible with you, but you do need to have it handy. So, make sure that that's something that's available to you in a timely manner. So the other thing that I would like to share with you, and I'm not sure why I hadn't said this before, but immigration right now is having a campaign to help people get their either permanent residence or temporary residence without having to go back to the US. So I know that that's something that stops people who came here and then they just don't want to go back to the US to finalize that process. So they are able to get that process here. They're just different requirements. So for example, one of the requirements is that you were in irregular status, so like your visa expired, I think by December of 2020. I think that was the information. And And then, that you do have your documents with you, like your passport and et cetera. So my recommendation is that if you're here in Mexico and your tourist visa already expired, just go to the immigration authorities. I'm not sure if you know where their offices are. I can put in their address here in the chat, but they would like to see people or talk to people in person about how they can help them get, a permanent visa or a temporary visa, if that's something that you're interested in doing, because every case is different. So one of the things that I would like to see happening in the future is that they have an email where people can just send their questions, but that's just not an option that they're offering right now. So my suggestion to you is just to ask them directly. I know that their process is very transparent. In fact, I've had people who've come here to the office and they have shared their experience with me, and I have not heard anything but positive comments about that. So they do have English speaking staff, and you're not gonna get the most accurate information than from them. So if you, I know that some people recommend attorneys or gestores, but my suggestion would be to just go and ask immigration directly, if that's, if you're interested in getting that kind of status here in Mexico. A process that is not an option is the renewal of a tourist visa. So I know also there's rumors of people that say that they can extend a tourist visa or renew a tourist visa, but that is not an option. The only option would be to adjust your status to either temporary or resident status if you qualify. But if not, then you do need to go back to the US and then come back again in order to get another tourist visa. Does that make sense?
I have a question. What's the difference between hello?
Go ahead.
What is the difference between a tourist visa and a temporary visa?
Well, the tourist visa is the visa that you get when you come in, when you're just traveling. So for example, you're in the US, you come to Mexico, and then you only have your US passport. So the document that you get is a tourist visa, and it's just a form. It's not really, a document that gets issued prior to coming or anything like that. It's just that immigration form. It's called the FMM form. That is the tourist visa. And then most of the time it allows you to stay here for up to 6 months, but that can be different. And it just depends on the immigration officer when you come into Mexico. And it is the same process when you go to the US. I mean, when you're a Mexican citizen and then you go to the US, the normal time that you get or that you're allowed to stay is 6 months, but the immigration officer has the discretion to say, I'm only gonna let you stay for 1 month or 2 months or whatever time. So that is not, established. It is up to the immigration officer's discretion for the time that you're allowed to stay in Mexico. That's usually 6 months, but it does not mean that will always be 6 months. Now, when you do have some type of resident status, like permanent or temporary, means that you're allowed to stay in Mexico for indefinite time. And then the difference between the temporary and the permanent is whether you're allowed to work. And most people do get the permanent status, and again, that, whichever way you choose, either the temporary or the permanent, that's something that you should discuss with immigration authorities to see what's more convenient for you or what fits your needs best.
So what we're hearing about are people that actually have been living in Mexico on a tourist visa, and then they go back every 6 months. And those are the people that may find themselves being rounded up and deported.
If they overstay, that is correct. So I haven't seen cases for U.S. citizens here in San Miguel, but I have heard of cases of people, Canadians and of other nationalities who overstayed, and then they didn't adjust their status. And then again, I have heard that there's been more checkpoints, and there's definitely enforcing those immigration laws. But I have not heard of a case here in San Miguel of someone locally. So the other situation where people end up in some type of immigration issue is when they cross by land and then they don't stop at the immigration office to get their tourist visa or their FMM form. So that's another thing to consider. If you're crossing by land into Mexico, you do need to stop by the immigration office to get your FMM form. And I have heard sometimes that the immigration offices are closed, there was no one there, but just keep in mind that it is your responsibility to get that document if you're traveling past the border limits, which I think is just 25 miles. So if you're traveling by land and you're coming all the way to San Miguel Allende, you do need to get that document. You may need to wait, you may need to maybe go back to the immigration office, maybe stay a few days in the border until you're able to get that document, but it is your responsibility to get it. If you end up here in San Miguel or somewhere past the border limit and you don't have the document with you, then you're subject to detention. And that's, is it whether that they're gonna take you into detention or not, that's not something that I will be able to determine, but it's not something that would be incorrect. So that's another piece of advice. I also have heard that it is very simple to just cross by land and stop by the immigration office and get that document. Immigration is not when you cross by land, and I'm sure most of you know, there is not going to be an immigration officer there to interview you. You do have to walk into that office to let them know that you're going to go past that border limit so that you can get an FMM form. So we've had cases, not recently, but in the past, where people say, well, there was no one there, no one stopped me, no one told me. But it is your responsibility to make sure that you take care of that in order to go past the border limit.
Erika, we have a few questions and I'm going to get right to them as time is starting to get tight. One of the questions was, so you can fly with the immediate results of an antigen test? And
yes.
The answer to that is yes, because I've done it a million times. Okay.
Yes.
Next is someone would like for you to please post the renewal process for a passport that includes going to Mexico City.
Okay, so I will do that right now.
Yes, and if there's a place that they can see that quickly, that will be great too. Another comment is, I don't like to carry my passport/visa with me as I walk around. I always carry a copy. Is that good enough?
The answer to that, it is no. It is not good enough, but it will be helpful. So, so just to give you an example, if you are detained for whatever reason, and then an immigration officer asks to see your documents and they see your copy of it, they may say, okay, that's fine. That it is up to them to make that decision. But it does not, but it does mean that you are subject to detention. So, I can tell you what action they're going to take. They may be fine with just seeing a copy of it, but also you're supposed to have that with you. And I totally understand when I travel outside of the country, I am always nervous to carry my passport with me at all times. But it's just, I cannot tell you that with a copy that you're not going to be subject to detention, because I would be lying to you.
Perfect. Someone said that, of course, they tried to contact the immigration office and was told to make an appointment, and that the website was very difficult to navigate, and that they used someone to arrange the appointment. And that's a very good point. We've had those speakers here before, these agents that provide those kinds of services. By the same token, someone is asking, well, our secretary, Ron Felton, is asking, do we think that someone from the immigration would be willing to come to speak to this group in English?
I can talk to them and see if that would be possible. I can check on it. The other thing is,
in January, we have a guest speaker in January that's an immigration attorney that speaks fluent English, and he is coming specifically to go over the Mexican side of the immigration. So if we can wait to him, he'll be here I think the second week of January.
Wonderful. Thank you for that information. You addressed the other issue here, that sometimes the agents at the border don't give you the 180 days, even if you ask for it. the person was asking, was there any rule behind the judgment or discretion? Obviously, you've already addressed that. No, it's at their discretion. And the other thing is, one of our members is looking to apply for a new passport, and he wants to know, does he need to send in his current passport with the application? And if so, is there a temporary ID card that can be used in place of the actual passport?
No, so if you decide to do a renewal by mail, you do need to send your passport, and there isn't anything temporary. My only suggestion to you would be to make a copy of that passport so that you at least have a copy of it. The other thing is, if you do a renewal here with us, we will cancel your current passport and give it back to you. So that passport will not be valid for travel, but it is somehow of an ID for you to have. It will be canceled, but you can see, you will still have that document with you. And then when you do a renewal here with us in person, we will give you your payment receipts, which is also proof that you are in the process of getting that passport renewed.
I'm going to read a short question first. Someone's purse was stolen or lost with the original permanent resident card. How do they get a replacement card?
With immigration authorities. I'm going to put in their information there. And in regards to, I just want to get back to that question that you said about the appointment with immigration. You can just walk in. They're open from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. So you can just walk into the office. You can also make an appointment, but they do accept walk-ins.
Wonderful. There's also a longer question from a person named Jeff, and I'll read the bottom, which is basically that he's waiting for a notice. There have been no updates on the UCIS case number. How do they get in touch with the Consul General offices? They live in Guanajuato.
Okay, so when you are doing a process with USCIS, and then you're also, okay, let me back up a little bit. When you're doing a process with USCIS, they do have to approve the case, and then they send it to the National Visa Center, and then it's sent to the consulate in Juarez. If this is for an immigrant visa. So if it's for a work visa or other type of visas, the consulate may vary. But if we're speaking about an immigration visa, so like permanent residence in the US, or what's commonly known as a green card, if that is the process that you're referring to, the only consulate that handles those cases is the consulate in Ciudad Juarez. So my suggestion to you would be to either check the status in the USCIS website, and I can put in the links in there. If the application says that it's already been approved, then it's probably sent to the National Visa Center. So that would be the second step, to contact the National Visa Center. If you have already gone through that process with the National Visa Center, then the next step would be to contact the consulate in Ciudad Juarez with your case number. And they do have a link specifically for that, for inquiries. So I will put those links in the chat. But those would be the steps. And then again, those are not cases that we handle here in this office. But that would be, those would be the steps to take. And then again, if it's for a green card case, the only consulate that will handle those requests would be Ciudad Juarez Consulate.
Okay. There's someone here that says that they went to the immigration office 3 weeks ago and the guard would not allow them to speak to anyone. Just a comment. I'm sure we can't do anything about that, but that's what occurred.
If you have that situation, you can send us an email, and that's something that I can check in with them. Because again, I mean, the times that I have asked immigration authorities, they have always been very, open and saying anyone can walk in from 9 to 3. But that's not something that I can guarantee they do. However, I have heard good experiences from people that I've met either on a professional level or on a personal level. I have heard good things, but I am sure that every now and then they have there's someone who's going to have a bad experience. Just like every now and then there's going to have someone who comes to our office here and they're going to have a bad experience, right? But if that is something, if you're struggling with that, let me know. And that's something that I can check with immigration and see what's going on. Again, maybe it was a holiday. I don't know. There could have been many reasons why that person was denied to talk to someone. But if you are facing that situation, send us an email, let us know, and that's something that I can follow up with.
Wonderful. The person that was asking earlier about the lost or stolen permanent resident card says that they've heard that they would have to start the whole process all over again. Do you know if that's true, or can just a replacement card be sought after?
I don't know if that is true, but I can find out and I can get back to you.
Okay. Tom Schneider is asking if we can post all these links on the Rotary Midday website. Tom, all of our calls are recorded. You can always go back to this meeting. The chat will be in there and you'll be able to see all these links, or do a copy paste right now, because that's a whole other subject of posting them to our website.
Yeah, right.
And if you,
Erika, I have one.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I had
Yeah,
one question.
From Gary?
Yes. I keep hearing about that there's a large number of US citizens living in Mexico illegally. And I sense that is probably a pretty large problem. What are you hearing about the Americans that are hiding illegally because maybe they can't qualify for residency because of income, or they just let everything lapse and are hiding in plain sight?
I can tell you that I have heard rumors. I have not heard of anything official, that there, for example, I haven't heard of any immigration raids. I do know that there's a lot of US citizens who lived here illegally, I guess, past their time that they're allowed to stay in, but I haven't heard of anyone, being detained while they were just walking down the street, I can tell you, what that, again, I haven't heard anything official. I haven't had a case like that. I have heard that rumor. All I can tell you is that the only or not the only, but the times that I have heard where people actually get detained or get questioned by immigration authorities is when they're traveling. So like you get a bus from here to Mexico City or even Leon, and then there's an immigration checkpoint, or there's someone from immigration who stops the bus and goes into the bus to ask for everyone's ID. That is something that I have heard of. I have heard of from people who do have, some type of immigration status or have a tourist visa, and they were like, I'm happy that I had that with me because they asked to see it. So that's why my recommendation for everyone would be to, if you're traveling, have that with you. Even if you're traveling within Mexico, even if you're just going to Leon, if you're traveling to Querétaro, I don't know, just have that with you, because those are the times in my experience where I've seen that immigration authorities are, stopping buses and checking on these documents. I have not heard of immigration just stopping someone walking downtown. And to be honest with you, I would be surprised if that ever happens. But are they allowed to do that? Of course they are. I haven't heard of them doing that.
Thank you.
Erika, there are some messages of gratitude for your help and your assistance. So I do want you to know that this community is very grateful to you and your office for all that you do for us here, in making us feel that we have a connection, and that if we need any information, we know that your doors are always open.
Yes, with an appointment.
Yes.
Right.
But if you want to email me, again, we can, talk on the phone. And again, I am always happy to see if there's anything that I can help you with. And again, there's sometimes where we may not be that, or, we may not be that useful, but if there's, I will try to make sure that I at least point you in the right direction. So
Perfect.
Just to give you an example, sometimes we have people asking about taxes and IRS, and that's not something that we handle, but I will be more than happy to find some information and get you a phone number or an email or somewhere where you can get the help that you need.
I'm going to read this one last question. Is a permanent resident card sufficient to carry for immigration status, or do you also need to carry your passport?
Technically, you're supposed to carry your passport and your permanent residence. I would say if you want to carry just your permanent residence, that's probably fine because they can check that in their, immigration can check that in their system. But if you're traveling, I would suggest having your passport too. If you're traveling within Mexico, of course.
All right, very good.
Okay, Skip, you can take it away.
All righty,
10:26.
very good. Erika, really appreciate you joining us today. Very informative session. And I know that a lot of people are going to continue to have a lot of questions, and certainly, they can get a hold of you at the consulate office. In appreciation for you being here today, we have this Rotary Club of Midday Rotary Club of San Miguel de Allende presents this certificate of appreciation for your presentation to our club. And because of that, a donation of 10 polio immunizations will be made in your honor to end the Polio Now campaign. Thank you very much. We'll by the way, we'll email this certificate to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate you being here today. All right. So, Mr. Ron Lennox, who do we have next week?
Next week on the 30th, we have a presentation on the Christmas season. So what's happening in San Miguel during the Christmas season. Then on the 7th of December is our club assembly. So we'll be having an internal speaker at that point. Then on the 14th of December, we have Ian Clement talking about Mexican immigration, and that should be a very hot topic, I would think. Then we do not have meetings during the Christmas season. So on the 21st and 28th, we will be dark here, and we start up again in January. We have a host of speakers, good ones coming in January, so stay tuned.
All right. Thank you, Ron. Very good. And I will join you all again next Tuesday via Zoom, and then I'll be on a plane Wednesday morning early coming back to San Miguel de Allende, and looking forward to it. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.